Welcome back to the Flicks Forum podcast with Jesse and MJ, where we go back and look at Netflix original films in the order of release. This episode, we are looking at Netflix's 48th film. It's the 2017 Cambodian-American biographical historical thriller titled First They Killed My Father. It's directed by Angelina Jolie, and it stars Sreymoch Sareum, Kompheak Phoeung, Socheata Sveng, Dara, Heng, and Kimhak. Welcome.
Hey, mate. This is number 48.
I can't believe we are that far in.
Even though we live them, I watch every film, we talk about every film, it still gets me when you say that number at the start of the episode.
Because you think about it, we watch the film, we write some notes, do a bit of research, get together, record it, put it up. We spend a lot of time with these films.
It's good as well.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just,
half the reason we started the podcast in the first place is because we love talking about films. And I like the fact that we're putting the decision of what film to watch and talk about completely up to someone else. And it's great.
And we have, like I said, no choice. And sometimes, most of the time, we haven't seen a lot of these films.
Out of 48, I had seen one of these beforehand.
I'd seen like 4 maybe. Yeah. So, it's good to see some stuff that
and
you
what's
probably
good about it, and this is what Netflix is doing really well, is how broad it is. So last week, we did a film called #Reality High, which is a teen comedy that was,
fantastic,
But it was very kiddie, and it was weird humor, and it is what it is. But this week we're doing this. It's like it couldn't be further apart.
This almost takes us back to the start of the journey. This is like, if you go back and listen to our first episode, Beasts of No Nation, this film is pretty similar.
Very similar. Many similarities, and both certainly have a place. And both I can certainly see where the filmmakers are coming from. But we're jumping ahead, aren't we?
We are. So we'd like to do a Fast Flicks where we kick off the show.
You should go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So we kick off and give our little quick summary of the film. So mine is quick. I've gone the heartbreaking journey of a young girl during the Khmer Rouge regime.
Yeah, mine's not dissimilar. A recollection of the atrocities undertaken by the Khmer Rouge told through the lens of a young girl.
Yep. Bang. And that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, there's so much more you could say, but it would kind of do it an injustice.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I feel like that you need to keep it simple because, and I'm not saying that this film is simple, but I don't even know how to explain it.
As weird as it is, plot is kind of secondary in this film.
Exactly.
And as soon as you start saying, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened, you're kind of going off the course a little bit from what I think Angelina Jolie is trying to do.
Yeah, so this one, I feel like, so we like to have a look at anything we've found out about this film, and I feel like this one had a plethora of information. So what's something that stood out to you about this film?
Yeah, it really did. Prior to watching the film, I didn't realise, I kind of picked it up during the film, that it was based on A, a true story, B, a book, which I guess more a memoir from the lead character.
The shot was based on a true story.
Based on a true story, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know it was based on a book.
On a book, yeah.
So that was based on Luong, who's the main character, Luong Ang's memoir, which was the same name. First, They Killed My Father. Mm-hmm. When was that published? Did you know? I didn't see the date when it was published. No, I didn't get that either. But I've sort of had this is
based on the reading. I think it's not that long ago because I feel like there was a bit of criticism about the book about it's a child revisiting her memories of what she felt.
When you say not that long ago, the one thing I did find out is that Angelina Jolie had read this book 17 years ago.
Okay.
So it's at least 17
years. Yeah.
But
sorry, so probably the distance between the events happening and her writing it there was a bit of a time.
There would have been, she was young.
Yep.
So, I mean, once you watch this film, and we should probably say right now, even though we're only touching the surface at the moment, but we are going to spoil the film. So if you're interested in watching this film, definitely give it a watch, and then we'll try and give you a lot more context on it throughout this podcast, because this is one of those movies that when you watch, you do want to research, even if we weren't doing it for the sake of the podcast. There's just things that you want to read about, and I sort of found out that Luong Ang and Angelina Jolie met through their activism work, both of them as activists in Cambodia, shortly after Angelina Jolie filmed Tomb Raider. So that's how long ago it was.
Oh, wow.
One night they basically found themselves swaying in hammocks in the middle of a monsoon and talking through the night and basically been mates ever since. So they adapted the screenplay from the memoirs years ago.
Yep.
And after a lot more drafts, it was Netflix that actually agreed to fully finance and produce the project in 2015. In June of that year, Angelina Jolie got the support of Rithi Pan, who's a Cambodian director of a Khmer Rouge documentary, The Missing Picture. So Pan became producer on the fact that this was obviously a Khmer language project. So he took the lead in a lot of the meetings and authorities to establish permission to shoot on Cambodian soil. So it's a big journey for them all.
It is. Yeah, so Jolie signed on in 2015 and they started filming that year. So, and then obviously spent a bit of time putting it all together because it didn't come out till 2017.
So what, they shot it in 60 days. And I think even getting they were really worried about getting the permission to shoot in Cambodia. Have you seen The Killing Fields?
Yep.
So The Killing Fields for me was basically my introduction and my only real source on what happened in Cambodia.
Yep.
That's kind of all I knew. So I wasn't obviously going into this film with no knowledge, but my knowledge was quite small. And it definitely made me want to learn more and it taught me more.
Yep.
But I think if you watch this film without any knowledge, you struggle a little bit. Just because they don't bother to try and educate you at the start. They're basically just saying, this is the world, deal with it. And I think if I didn't really understand what was going on, I'd be like, why is this happening? So what's led to this point? Why is this here? So
I feel like that you don't really need to know what's going on around Long's character. It's more about her.
Sure.
So the things that are happening around her, you don't need to know the background really. And if you do know a little bit about it, it'll be more impactful for you. But I think you could still get a lot out of this film.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. I'm probably jumping the gun a bit. So it had a brief theatrical release in Cambodia.
Yeah. Shot in February of 2017.
Yeah. And then it premiered at TIFF September 2017.
Yep. And it played, before it went to TIFF, it went to the Telluride Film Festival in the USA as well.
I did see that actually, yeah. Nominated for a Golden Globe.
Yep, that's what I've got down as its probably biggest nomination.
Yeah.
For best motion picture of a foreign language film.
Yep. So it was beaten by, did you get it?
No, you go.
In the Fade, French-German film.
No, don't know it.
I wasn't familiar with it either.
So I added up all the nominations it had. So it had 34 nominations across a variety of different award categories.
A lot of them around best foreign language.
Yep, correct. And it won 9. So out of the 34, it won 9.
Pretty impressive.
And it was shortlisted for the Academy Awards.
I saw that they submitted it for Academy Awards.
Entry, but didn't make it. And then, it had a lot of... After it debuted on Netflix on the 15th of September, it did premiere at a lot of other festivals too.
Yeah.
Which is probably... This is probably one of the films that has had the most theatrical releases.
From what we've done in these 48 films. Yeah, and Beast from No Nation is probably the other one.
Yeah.
Budget of $24 million. Yeah. So, shot in 60 days, budget $24 million. Probably... That's a big commitment for Netflix at this point in time. Really getting behind it.
But still, for the aesthetics of this film, I feel like that it's well spent.
For sure. And look, I can imagine it wouldn't be all that expensive to shoot in Cambodia.
Yeah.
And the point being, Killing Fields, which is obviously based around the same kind of story, was filmed in Thailand.
Yeah.
So this was the first time they actually went back to Cambodia and did it there. But just for some context, some $24 million budget films.
Well, good. I wrote down here because one source I said had it at 22 mil.
Okay.
The other source I saw had it at 24 mil. So it's the same sort of range, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get MJ on this one and be like, I've got the budget, can you give me some films? So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, $24 million, a couple of the more popular films for $24 million, small budget, but Scream 2, Old School, Fences, probably one of the more recent ones. There wasn't many recent ones.
Denzel Washington.
Correct, Denzel Washington. And the original Point Break film was 24 million as well. So you can do a bit of work with 24 million, but this is probably on the higher side of $24 million films.
Swayze's Point Break for 24 million will probably be about a 50 million film today.
It's very true.
Well, you count for inflation.
No, of course, yeah. I mean, that's why, what I tried to find, even Scream 2 is late 90s, Old Schools, early 2000s.
Yeah. Still, no,
that's why Fences was probably the one that I tried to get that was most.
So Angelina Jolie, I guess the reason she's got this connection with is because she's adopted a Cambodian kid.
Yep.
Yeah, and she actually has Cambodian citizenship too.
Yeah, I see. I learnt that during this.
And her adopted son Maddox is a co-producer on this film. Yeah. So would have been about 18, I think, by the time this film was made.
Yeah.
So it's a nice sort of little kickstart to get that, ability to get into the...
Yeah, she made the point that
industry.
he was, very hardworking, and this was a good opportunity for him, a great chance to see, not necessarily like see where his ancestry, lives and all that kind of stuff. So very important for that sense as well. I didn't realise she became a citizen in 2005.
Yeah.
So she's been a citizen there for a long time.
Yeah. I really thought that they have a lot of those statistics at the end of the film about the deaths that this actual genocide,
Blows your mind, doesn't it?
It's crazy. A quarter of the population.
Yeah.
In 4 years. It's crazy. That's so many people.
Insane. What's the amount of people again? It said it like 2 million or 4 million or...
Yeah, it was something really like out of control. Anyway, it sort of breaks your heart a bit to think that people have that lack of respect for humanity.
Was there a thing at the end that said like this is an important story to tell, or did I just write that? I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah,
and it's just as simple as that is. It's just like saying, "Oh, you just watched this film, right?" And you're like, "Oh, geez, why did I watch that? Well, this is important for people to know."
I think in pre-production, it had at first they killed my father, and then the subtitle for it was "A Daughter of Cambodia Remembers."
Yeah.
So it's about remembering the past, and it's a lot like with these Holocaust films as well. It's about remembering what's in the past, so that doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah,
because you don't want this atrocity to happen again.
So Angelina Jolie basically said she made it for Cambodia. She made it as a kind of a thank you, a love letter. There hadn't been a story on this scale that would reach people in their own language. That's probably a good point. Yeah. With them being the hero, like Cambodia, they fought back and they got themselves back to what they are now. But
yeah, and there are there's hundreds of films about Vietnam. Hundreds of films, and
because America's really heavily involved.
Correct, and you don't get a lot of, and America was involved in Cambodia too. So you
say that at the start.
You do say that at the start. So it's interesting that there's only a couple of films that I can think of that actually cover this story.
Yep, there is. Rwanda. I don't really think there's many stories about Rwanda either.
I've seen Hotel Rwanda.
I have seen Hotel Rwanda. Yeah. That's heartbreaking.
That movie, I think we may have spoken about that film on here before.
I think we spoke about it during Beasts, Beasts of No Nation, because it kind of...
I studied that when I was in Year 12 for international studies, and I've taught that myself a couple of times just to open kids' eyes.
I watched that at home on a Saturday night by myself once and just broke me. Yeah. I knew what I was getting into.
You need someone there with you for that one.
No, that was rough. That was really rough.
Critical consensus for this one was pretty... positive.
Very positive.
88% on Rotten Tomatoes on 67 reviews.
Reviewers would like this. You can see critics getting behind this. This is a real critic.
The same thing, Rotten Tomatoes, the audience had 80%. So,
is that right? Okay.
So pretty high for the audience, and that was on nearly 2,300 reviews.
Well, 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Which is pretty high.
From nearly 11,000. No, that's very high.
That's very high,
If you're given anything over sort of 3.5 stars, and there you go, Letterboxd 3.5 out of 5 from nearly 4,000. Those numbers are a little bit smaller than I thought, to be honest. As in the rating, the amount of people rating them. But no, they're good numbers. It was a good move, I think, for Netflix. And you know what? I wonder how much this paved the way for Roma being what Roma was as well. Because this is a year and a bit before Roma, and they obviously pushed Roma really hard from a awards perspective. And I think they found themselves a nice little niche in this foreign language area.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to share about the film?
Look, just again to put some credit in what Angelina Jolie is trying to do for Cambodia. She used only native Cambodian child actors who spoke the Khmer language. She cast soldiers from Cambodia's actual army to stand in for the Khmer Rouge. She wasn't trying to make a big Hollywood blockbuster. She had a mission in mind, and Luong Ung is her friend, and she wanted to do it justice and
tell her story.
Credit to her. She's got the means to do a lot more stuff with this, and she stripped it down and made it what it was. So credit to her. All
right, let's have a chat about some characters. Oh, sorry. Before we talk about characters, we need our early thoughts on this film.
What are your early thoughts?
I really, 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 really loved this film. I thought it was moving. I thought it was made really well. It looked beautiful, and I was anxious watching this film. I felt this anxiety for the characters' well-being right from the get-go, and I was on edge.
Okay.
I was on edge. Yeah. What about you?
I appreciated it.
Yep.
Particularly for its ability to not hold any punches. Really put yourself in Luong's shoes.
Yep.
I do think that the commitment to telling the story as a 5-year-old had its barriers, particularly from a context perspective, which I spoke about earlier.
Yep.
And I thought that the child's perspective kind of shielded the audience from some of the harsh realities, and it built just a little bit of confusion and chaos, which made it a little bit of a slog to get through at times.
Okay. All right. Good. So this could be a little bit of a good discussion.
I liked the film. I did like the film, but I could see that there were just some barriers there from really...
Because some of the things that you've mentioned there are things that I really liked about it. I liked the child's perspective, and I really appreciated that. And I
don't think they're bad things either. I get where they're coming from, but it does impact my entertainment level and enjoyment level. So.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, let's talk about some characters.
Let's do it.
Go for it. I only wanted to really talk about Long, really.
Well, here's your chance.
So I thought the performance from that kid was awesome.
Her only acting credit.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, very little dialogue, but you didn't need the dialogue, and that probably comes down to a bit of Jolie's ability to direct. And I felt I was watching this film as if I was her. And I just loved that perspective from her eyes.
That's the one thing you can't forget in this whole film. You are watching this from her perspective.
Yep.
And if things aren't factually correct, or if things aren't the way that you expect them to be, that's cool. That's how she saw it.
Exactly.
And you need to remember that when you're watching this whole film.
It's the kid's interpretation of what was happening.
And that's what actually gets me to her father, is how much of him was how his daughter saw him. Like her father was amazing, selfless, strong, wise. But was he? Or was this just how Long remembers him as this great guy? And you just need to check that every time you're judging something. And you go, no, this is what a 5-year-old girl thought was happening at the time. And that's what those opening scenes where they're sort of marching away and getting forced here and there. And I don't think you truly... that's probably a bad way of putting it. But as an adult watching this film, you can understand all this atrocity that's going on. But that's not really conveyed on screen, because the adults are actually being calm about it. Long's like, okay, this is kind of how it is. And it's really strange. And I put this in my scenes as didn't hate it, didn't love it, but wanted to talk about it, is that despite my brain knowing where this was all headed, the feeling of being doomed isn't really portrayed on screen at all early on, because she doesn't feel threatened at all. And it slowly gets to that point where she's like, something's up here. Like when she's like, you said we could go home in 3 days. It's been 3 days. But those first 3 days, she's not worried.
No, because she felt safe.
Yeah, and her parents are giving off good vibes and everything's going quite well. And it was just a cool way to do it.
Have you seen... There's a film called Life is Beautiful. Have you seen it? It's an Italian film.
No, I haven't.
The guy... I feel horrible for not remembering his name. His surname starts with B. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor that year for a foreign film. And it's about a male adult in a concentration camp with his son during the Holocaust.
Right.
And the film is literally the perspective of the kid and the dad trying to tell it, pretend life's normal. So even though they're in all these striped pajamas and all these types of things, and it's literally the dad making life as normal as possible for this kid. And I just had these to me it was that these parents, for the kid, for Long, life was almost as normal as it possibly could be. Yep. And the parents were a part of that, even though you knew that they were trying to deal with everything else on the outside. Yeah. And you could see that through multiple scenes. Yeah.
That movie sounds heavy.
You need to watch Life is Beautiful.
Yeah, okay. Straight.
Yeah. But anyway, that's that
sounds really similar. And that's the vibe that I got really early on. Yeah. There was a breaking point in that, obviously, but it was a very interesting way to look at it early on. Because me being somewhat familiar with what was going on, I was like, this isn't being portrayed. This is okay. I'm watching it from her perspective, and that's why it's not being portrayed.
Yep.
Is there anything else you want to say about her? Again, I thought she was great as well.
Yeah, like you mentioned about the dad, and I thought they tried. Yeah, like you said, they tried to make it out like that. All the kids thought was the dad cared about them.
Yeah.
100%. But you get these little shots of him like burning his passport and just these little things of him arguing with the uncle and auntie about being there because he's a danger because of his job. Yeah. So as bad as he felt, he still just wanted the right thing for his kids. And, you know, when Long takes these grains and then he like blames it on the rats. Yeah, grains of rice and blames it on the rats so she's protected from the brothers. Like
that was in my scene. That's...
Yeah,
that was beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway,
and heartbreaking.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk. I was like, we could talk about these characters, and I was like, no, I don't. I just want to talk about her because this is literally just her story. It's not about what's happening around. It's a character story about this kid.
It really was, and I didn't have. All I had was her Pa, and I just wanted to mention the difference between Pa and Ma.
Yep.
Whereas he always felt in control and was willing to sacrifice everything. You could feel the weight slowly get to her, and that was tough. Her seeing her mum like that, she never saw her dad get to that point.
Very true, yeah, and you could see it almost in the mum's face at times that she was down and out.
She was done, and when the dad was gone, that was it.
Yeah,
she had nothing left to give.
Yeah. So Angelina Jolie is a director. This is her fourth film?
Fourth or fifth.
Fourth, yeah. So in 2011, she did this one called Land of Blood and Honey. Then she did Unbroken, which was filmed in Australia.
Oh.
And then By the Sea, which was with Brad Pitt about a relationship in France. So the first one and then Unbroken and this one. So 3 out of her 4 films that she's directed have been war films.
Yeah.
So maybe, have you seen Unbroken?
No, I haven't.
Unbroken's a really good film. I thoroughly enjoy Unbroken as well. I haven't seen the others, but Unbroken... It's about an Olympic American runner and how he gets captured by the Japanese. And it was filmed. A lot of it was filmed in Australia.
Well, she actually mentioned off the back of Land of Blood and Honey. And this is kind of talking about why it works on Netflix. She liked the idea of this being on a streaming platform because viewers could watch it when they're ready.
Yep.
And if they are struggling with a certain portion of it, they can put it off and turn it off and look away for a little bit, because a lot of the feedback she got from Land of Blood and Honey was that people who were Bosnian, said they needed to stop, take a break, come back to it. So she was really aware that would probably be very similar for particularly a Cambodian audience, but any audience who can...
It's tough. It's a tough sell for a film to be like, hey, you're going to go sit in a cinema with ads, you're in a cinema for over 2.5 hours, and it's not going to be an enjoyable experience.
Nah, you're right. Very right. And
I really enjoyed that the cast were all unknowns and locals, like you said before. It was great. It was so good that she didn't be like, I need to get one name to sell this film. Yeah. It
was clearly never important to her.
No, like you said, she just wants to tell this story.
I enjoyed that about reading about that stuff with it.
Yeah. Do we want to look at some scenes?
Yeah, I think we're ready to look at some scenes.
Okay, tell me what did you like? What stood out for you?
I kind of struggled through the first half hour in the sense that it felt and this sounds overly critical, but it felt a bit aimless, which was the point, and I'm okay with that. But there was nothing that stood out for me early on. So there was a scene where the dad said, "If they find out who I am, and you and the children will be in danger, and you must do what I discussed." And that was the first time that I got interested in the story of Luong specifically, because initially it just felt like she was this fish that was in a stream, and we were just seeing everything that was going on, and we we're going to get that individual direction of her story, which we did, and that was a nice turning point, and that piqued my interest straight away. I think this is when I started to get into the film, when Luong put her hand on, I think it was her sister's arm when she ate that bean. She ate the bean in the field, and then she got sort of scolded.
Yep.
And they're walking away, and she puts her hand on her hand. And Luong started to realise what they were actually in for, but she still maintained that human decency and care for others, which is basically the only thing that was going to get her out of the other side.
Yeah.
And that was so nice and so real. You mentioned this before, but this one got me when after she eats their rice and the dad blames the rats and the brother hits her and the dad doesn't get mad at anyone, and he holds them close and just says that they have to love each other.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my little heart was hurting when that happened. I was like, this is
he
rough.
knows he's only got a certain amount of time with him.
Yeah. And he knows that they need to stick together.
Yeah.
Oh, that was tough, but that was a beautiful scene. Beautiful scene. And then we get to the landmine scene where she's knows that she's walking through a field with a bunch of landmines, and that was truly chilling and terrifying. Felt a little bit silly where people were kind of just running around and blowing up. I think they could have done that a little bit better. It felt a bit willy-nilly. But watching her stand there, weigh up the situation, and understand that I am in a whole heap of shit right now if things go wrong. Like, this is it.
I really enjoyed that scene as well, because to me it was like that realization on her face of, I was a part of people who did this and built these traps, and she was freaking out, and just that she didn't have to say anything. It was just that recognition in her face of, hey, I've done this.
That scene, I don't even know how long it was. It might have even been like 2 minutes. It felt like it was half an hour because I was just in it. I was just like, oh my God, this is... and then the final one that I liked, probably off the back of that, when they find that Khmer soldier and they all start beating up on him, and then they all kind of walk away, and then Long's the one that goes there and kind of stares at him. And to me, it was just this whole realization for her that we're all human. In fact, almost for all of them there, we're all human. Why are we doing this to each other? Despite the fact that you've done atrocities to us, why are we doing it to you? When did we get to this point? And that whole scene was almost just like a commentary of, how do we get to this?
That was the one scene that I kind of didn't like.
It was the end, only the end of it, when she stands there and looks at him.
I wasn't a massive fan of her, like, looking at him as if it was her father.
Okay, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, like, because she kept having those flashes as if, like, this is her dad, and, like, is this the sort of thing that happened to her dad? And that, I don't know, just based on the journey that we'd had with her, I don't know that I was happy with that was the finality with her father. Because that was, like, the final scene that she's coming to grips with her dad's gone, and I wasn't a massive fan of her resembling that guy with her father.
True. I guess I think I just saw it more on a human level.
Yeah.
This man is a human, like my father was a human.
Yeah.
Why did they do it to him? Why are we doing it to this guy? And that sort of struck a chord with me.
And maybe that's like with me with the title of the film, and that's why I don't like it, because I'm not a massive fan of the title of the film, because
I was going to get to that.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later on. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine, but I was going to get to that. But probably for a different reason than you.
Probably.
But that's the stuff that I liked in this film.
All right. Well, most of the scenes I liked weren't necessarily for what was happening with the characters. It was the way it was made.
Yeah.
And the way the camera worked. And I thought Jolie did an awesome job with the camera in this film. And literally it started off with me building this connection with this kid straight away, because the camera just tracks Long as she goes through the house and she gets out to the balcony, and it's like she's trying to reach for this helicopter that's flying above, and it's just, she's trying to grab it, and it just sets up this innocence of this kid. She's like, I can grab that. That's in the sky. Look, I can see it, so I must be able to touch it. And to me, it was like straight away, okay, this kid has got a lot coming for her.
Yeah.
And, this was followed up by the next scene is the kids are all sitting at the table playing footsies with each other, and they go out and play hopscotch, and it's just this total, like, innocence of these kids.
It's a really similar setup to Fantastic Beasts, where
Beasts of No Nation. We're not doing Harry Potter on this.
Yeah, really similar when Grindelwald or whatever his name is. Really similar to Beasts of No Nation, that allows for that juxtaposition between then and now. Because I remember at the start of Beasts of No Nation, like, this kid's got a great life, and they just do enough in this film as well, where they're like, she's got it good. They've got it good. It's a great life. They're all happy. What a great family.
I even like the follow-on, though. Like, when they start traveling a little bit, and then there's this girl who's just washing herself, having this bath, and just the look in her eyes of her watching and going, okay, I'm no longer in a house, so I can't wash myself in the shower that I'm used to, but I need to watch this girl, so when I bathe myself, I know what to do. Just this learning of this kid of what to do, and then they're eating beetles, and they're just having fun. It's like, these guys are just kids.
They're still kids.
And look at this learning they're doing just as kids. I thought that was cool. And like I said before, the point of view, I thought a lot of the shots where it's like her point of view was amazing. The high angle and low angle shots throughout, they were everywhere. And I thought they were really, I wrote they're killer, like impactful. They there's these parades of people marching, there's these workers in the fields, Then you got ones of when Long's in the jungle, and you've got these long angle shots of her like being trapped by this jungle and these enclosures. And you got these high angle ones of like the kids training and the huts of where they lived when they were abandoned.
Yeah.
And the kids hiding in the water at the battle, just like, and the complete destruction of the battle. They were all just done so well, intertwined with, just so you got the overall picture of what's happening. Yes, this story is about her, but hey, all these massive, big, high angle shots tell that overall story as well.
Great point. And it's probably one of those things that you just take for granted, don't you? So
yeah,
very, very nicely done.
The dream sequence thing as well. I thought this was something that I liked as a thing because so long, whenever she had a dream, it was almost this horror that she was facing. And there's this scene where it starts off with her having to throw her red dress away when they go through this checkpoint, and they're not allowed anything that's like individual or anything like that. And she has these flashes of her wearing this red dress and how happy, and these happy memories that she has, and good times with her brother. And then they see this dead body in the river that they sort of prod to push downstream. And then from then on, it's like, she stuffs her face with all this coloured food, and then it's like the visions are of her dad rolling into a pit and then being in a field and her mum in a pit with all these dead bodies. Like, just these dreams of her interpreting what's going on, but it's gone from these nice dreams of, these good memories to these future dreams of...
Even though she doesn't necessarily know that's what's happened to her parents.
It's her interpretation as well. Wow. I thought that there's this scene where Long was trying to get changed on the car, and they've got this towel, and just the camera work was amazing. Like, of trying to get changed behind this towel, and I just felt like, back when you're at school and you're like trying to change behind a towel at this thing, and it's just like I could relate to that as a kid. Like, you don't want to get changed in front of people, so you got to do your best to cover it up, and just this whole innocence.
And she was still thinking like, why am I doing this?
Exactly. Why can't I be at home? In my house. And I thought they did a really good job of continuing this, her not exactly knowing what's going on, but being there when these conversations are being held around her. So the parents would often be inside, and she's peering through the gaps in the bamboo, or did she really understand?
It really got me early, and I almost put it in the scenes I didn't like, but it didn't really bother me in the end. When the very first scene with her dad, when his military mate's there as well, and they're talking about like military things. I'm like, why are you having this conversation with your daughter in the room? But then I'm like, well, maybe that's just how she thinks it happened, or maybe that's just her interpretation of it, which I'm okay with. And
maybe it's even her looking back and being like, I had no idea what they were now, but now
this
I
is
know
what it was.
what they were talking
exactly,
about. Yeah. I really like the scene too. So the mum tells the kids, you've got to go. And then so she sends the two brothers and Long off, and they get to this crossroads, and there's this big sort of, I'm guessing it's a Buddhist statue.
Some sort of religious icon.
Some sort of religious icon, and they stop, they pray, and it's like this crossroads. They're going to go in different paths, but they all end up back together. And then there's this final shot at the end of the film where the actual people now are praying together at this thing. So it's like this connection that they've got, that we pray, we come back together. So it's like this connection they have as a family.
That's a good point.
I like that.
I was really glad that she didn't separate from her sister, although she got separated eventually by chance. But she didn't. When the mum said you all have to go separate ways, I was like, no, I'm glad she didn't.
And I sort of like when she gets that pass to go back and see her sister.
Oh yeah.
And then as soon as she walks past the statue, I'm like, she's not going to her sister.
That's what
she's going all the way to mum. And like, but I just like that you got that reveal. You worked that out yourself while watching this.
They didn't spoon feed it to you. It took me a while as well. I was like, but then no one was there at all.
No, because they'd all been.
That was it.
Cleared out.
Killed. But they were used as labourers as well. So I'm assuming there was an area there that they had to do work on, and they harvested all the crops, or that area was now useless to them.
Yep.
That's what I assumed.
Or that the Vietnamese were coming.
True. Yeah.
Because they attacked them pretty soon afterwards.
Probably more accurate, actually.
But then also, so after she goes there to see that her mother's gone, I just thought that it was really impactful when she comes back that you just get these quick, short little shots of how focused she was now on her training, on her learning, this aggression that she had. She was ready to kill.
She was jarred. She's done.
Mum's gone. She's like, I'm ready. And I'm nearly there. So there's the kids are sort of walking. They're walking. And they get to this bridge, and there's the soldiers in the green uniforms, and there's no subtitles, and it was just great knowing that they don't have to tell you that they're crossing into Vietnam or they're Vietnamese soldiers. Just without the subtitles, they don't understand what they're saying, so we don't understand what they're saying either.
True, yeah, because you are Luong.
Yeah, you're Luong, so you're like, they're speaking a language. I don't have subtitles. I don't know what they're saying. She doesn't know what they're saying. They're obviously Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And they didn't even need to have, like... If you think back to, like, Siege of Jadesville, they had, like, literally road signs that said, now crossing into this area. Yeah. This film is so clever that you don't need that because they do it in such a visual way. And I just really appreciated that. And finally, the scene near the end where they're at this Red Cross campsite and there's this lady giving birth in a tent and Long goes in and she just has this smile on her face which just tells 1,000 stories like that. There's this new life coming in. Yeah. Life's going to continue. And it was just so much from this one kid.
Yeah,
I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. You only watched this once?
Yeah.
You soaked it up really well. You've got everything.
They were just things that stood out. And I was just like, these are awesome.
No,
I
good.
really enjoyed that.
That's a good effort. I reckon that'd be one of those things where you watch the film a second or third time and you pick up more and more. But I reckon you've sucked it dry. You've done well.
Thank you. No, well, I don't know. I mean, I was into this a little bit more than you were. But I don't know.
But not being into it doesn't mean I should miss those things.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Maybe that's because I was from the start that scene where I could see this kid, and I was clinging to her. I just wanted her to get through.
Sounds how I felt with the girl from Okja.
Yeah, definitely. So what didn't stand out?
I don't have any scenes.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was weirdly paced. For a host of reasons, it probably worked for you. Yeah. I just had a little bit of trouble with time, how long time was passing, and what was actually happening and where they were and how far they'd gone from each other. I just lost context of that, which was exactly how Luong would have felt, exactly how you're probably supposed to feel as an audience. But that pace, sometimes I felt the movie was pretty, not flat, but nothing was happening for a long period of time. Then maybe something would happen, but was it happening? I wasn't too sure.
It was jarring because she'd go to sleep, she'd have this dream, she'd wake up, you don't know if it's the next day or what it was. Yeah,
a lot of time must have passed because we're talking about what happened at Phnom Penh being 4 years, really. And I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming they were basically in the city at the start, so I'm assuming they would have been one of the first people to get moved out.
Yeah.
By the end of the film was kind of the end of the Khmer Rouge reign. So
possibly covering that whole 4 years.
Yeah, it could have been. It might not have been. And I don't want to speculate, but I found the pacing hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that I specifically didn't like in terms of scenes that didn't work.
Yeah. The only thing that I spoke about before was that scene where she kept seeing her dad in this guy that was getting beaten up. That was the only thing that didn't sit massively well.
It's all right. We looked at that one differently.
Yeah. All right. Well, what was the film saying? Like, what are some themes?
I want to say as blunt as possible that this theme is probably not the right word, but this was just an important story to be told.
Yep.
As we spoke about, a quarter of the country's population killed by the Khmer Rouge. Like, wow. Seriously, like, if nothing else, that's what you should take out of that film.
Yep.
This happened, let's not let it happen again.
Good. Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, trust me, but that was, let's be blunt about it. That's probably one of the main reasons this film was made.
Yep. I was looking at it again from just as if I was that kid. So this survival thing, like just staying alive, doing what you have to do, lie about your name, work as hard as you possibly can so you don't get shipped off, whatever you need to do to stay alive. And again, like the loss of innocence, like seeing all these things happen around you, even though it may have taken her time to realize what was happening, like it was happening around her. So that's going to have some sort of impact somewhere. I like this idea of her dreaming too, like not knowing what happened, but dreaming or having these visions of what had actually happened. So maybe that's a little bit of closure too, like that you need some finality behind what had actually happened to these parents that you didn't actually see what happened to them, but you need for yourself some...
Of course, how could you not speculate,
exactly.
Right? Like, the dad died, but like if you're 5 years old and your dad walks away, did he die? Like, how could you not think maybe he's all right? Like, maybe he's just gone to another town or...
And, like, do you imagine based on all the things that you... Like, there are lots of scenes where she sees dead bodies or people being tied up or things like... I'm sure it's a combination of all those things that she imagines this is what happened.
Which one was his end?
Yep. Yeah. The US bailing on another conflict.
Yeah. What was that Siege of Jadesville that happened as well? Well, that was the UN.
Yeah, that was the
screwing
UN.
up.
It was. I know what you're talking about. The one with Lakeith Stanfield.
War Machine.
War Machine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one. There's a little bit about corruption too. Like it didn't need to be about a film about communism versus capitalism or anything like that because it didn't have to be. But you know, it was tough for Long as a kid to understand this when she's gone from this living in this house where she could have whatever she wanted to being told possessions are worthless, we're all the same, but then having to work so hard and then seeing all these things that you're working hard to produce these awesome fruits being shipped off to other people. So where is this, like, as a kid, how does that make sense?
Where's the logic?
Yeah, because it's like, we've got all these awesome fruits. All I'm allowed is a couple of bits of rice, but we're, like, they're shipping off all these awesome, lovely produce to other people.
It's and it comes down to the propaganda that they're selling them as well.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, and I'm sure that's how it was. It doesn't sit well with me that was the Khmer Rouge's motto, that we're all equal, when, like, you're absolutely not. These guys were prisoners, and don't pretend like they weren't. So,
But was that them trying to pump the communism ideals?
but yeah, it was. But and as I said, like, let's not try and this was an evil race of people. Let's not try and justify what they did. But you know what? They have to have had these ideals in their head that were working, but. It doesn't sit well with me that was the way they went about it. Because were you trying to recruit these people to be part of your regime, or were they prisoners?
Yeah, well, if you didn't do what they said, you got killed. So.
That's what I mean. So it wasn't just like, hey, change your clothes and objects mean nothing and you're one of us, because it's not what it was.
That was forced upon them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like communism across Europe too. It was forced across people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then, how is it ever going to be successful? Because then, like, her older brothers and sisters went to fight, right? For this team that wasn't their team. Crazy. But that's what happened, I guess.
Yep. And the last thing, weapons. There were so many shots, like, you just had these shots of guns in your face the whole time, and I just thought that was really impactful for what does this mean for kids? Having this in your face.
This is a child.
All the time. Does that lead to this ideal that maybe guns are not the norm? You need weapons.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I guess watching a lot of war films recently.
Yeah. All right, well, what do we take from this film?
Well, I wanted to talk about the title.
Okay.
And I think I've got completely different reasons for you, because this is a film where I remember I was struggling a little bit for direction early.
Yep.
And when there is a film called First They Killed My Father, I'm waiting for the father to die before the direction's going to take place. And he doesn't die until an hour and 10 minutes in. And that's kind of when the film took direction too, which is okay, because I like the context that they created and they were doing other things. But I would have changed the title for that reason, because average Joe is watching this film saying, oh, this is a story about this girl's father who died and then what happened next. Because that's how I was looking at it. And I struggled with that sense. Didn't want him to die, though. But then I was like, maybe this is the death of his innocence. Yeah, so the death of who his father was before he actually died. So there's a million ways to look at it.
So yeah, and you saying that, I'm thinking a little bit more again about what I was about to say, because I'm like, okay, so maybe
don't change what you're going to say.
No, but now what you've said, I'm like, okay, so maybe the death of the father was when they left that house.
That's
him as a person is gone.
But now. You know what? That's only been me thinking about it for days afterwards. That I was thinking, you know what? I was actually getting off the train today, and I was walking down escalators, like, maybe that's what they meant by First They Killed My Father. They killed who he was. They killed him as who he was,
yeah. That's good. Because, like, I was like, okay, so if you're going to go with this, is it like you go first, comma, they killed my father? Because it's like first, then they did that. Because the sister died first.
Ah, okay, you're thinking...
So I was like...
In literal order.
Yeah, in literal order of that film, I was like, okay, the sister died first. Why have we got this title?
Right,
Because I was thinking...
This was the first person
visually,
they picked off in my
everything
family.
else in this film to me was visual.
Yeah, okay.
Everything, like the dreams, her dreams were visual. The point of view was visual. So to me, if you're going the visual route of what Long was seeing... The visual first death is my sister.
Yeah.
So first they killed my sister. Because to me, she doesn't know... Because everything else is ignorance to her, really. Well, not ignorance, sorry, that's the wrong word. But, like, she takes her a while to catch on what's going on. Especially, like you said before, 3 days, why aren't we going home?
Yeah.
So to her father wasn't dead when they left that house. Like, his
But if you want to get real literal with it, they didn't kill her sister. They put her in a position where she got killed. But they didn't. They literally killed her
It's a
father.
very interesting title.
It is. It's the name of the memoir.
Yeah, true. So if we read the book, maybe we'd have more of a context to...
Potentially, but I'm assuming that's the story.
Yeah. I thought it was exceptionally well made, but I did have issues with the intro and the outro. The start and the end. So the start was like this montage of actual footage of Nixon, US president, as well as like footage of the napalm bombs going off, all that sort of stuff. So I guess
Press releases and...
Yeah, I know you need the context for the film, and that's okay. And then the end is this scene with the family together now, praying. And I was like, compared to what we'd seen for the rest of the film, it was just a little bit...
When you think, I can see what you're saying with the opening scene, but when you think about Angelina Jolie writing a love letter to Cambodia, that final scene is perfect.
Yep.
To sign off on that.
I guess it gives a little bit of hope that these people did survive and they're still...
I think when you're sitting through a story that grim, and it's super grim, you know it's a true story. And when you're watching a true story, you never actually know how many creative liberties they've taken. In this, it seems like they've taken very little. Like, this is basically what happened. So to see that at the end, knowing that this is how they ended up, it's pretty heartwarming. And a story like that can really use a bit of heartwarming nature.
I agree. I would have watched this at the cinemas.
It would have been a lot better at the cinemas.
Yeah.
It would have been. But to your point, it would have been a hard slog. And to Angelina Jolie's point as well, someone sitting there going, why am I putting myself through this? And that's not a reflection of you not being an empathetic person. No. It's hard to swallow. It really is.
Schindler's List is one of my favourite films, and that's not an easy film to watch either.
Schindler's List is a great film that I've seen once, that I'm in no rush to watch again.
Yep.
But it's a great film.
Yep.
Same with, have you seen Room? A few years ago, Room with Brie Larson.
Yep.
Great film. Wouldn't want to watch it again.
Yeah.
So sometimes the content or the material is just a bit too much to swallow sometimes.
Yep. Yeah.
You need to be in a hell of a right mindset for it.
Yeah. Did you go on IMDb at all?
I didn't. I reckon in the 48 films that we've done, I reckon this is the first time I didn't.
I did after I watched the film to see if anyone had been in it. Like you said before, this is her only role she's done.
The only thing I did afterwards was IMDb Angelina Jolie's son, who was the executive producer, because I read the name on the credits.
Yep.
And I saw that it was Jolie Pitt was a surname, and I was like, oh, has he done other producing roles for them? That was the only thing. So
had he? Or?
No.
Okay, yep. Have you got any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I do. I thought of one whilst we were talking, so I'm going to ask you that.
Good.
Because you have very much enjoyed this film. How much do you want to read the original memoir?
You're jumping the gun on me because that's going to be our social media question of the week.
Wow, I've never picked that.
You've jumped it. You've jumped the gun. So,
well, how about you personally?
Yeah, I'd like to do a bit of background. More like, obviously, we knock off a podcast a week, watch the film, all that sort of stuff. I'd like to read a bit more about her as a person.
You could live in this film for a bit longer.
I'm pretty sure she's lives in America now.
Don't know.
Yeah, from something I read, I'm pretty sure she lives in America, and she goes backwards and forwards. And the idea is she's in America, she's married in America to an American,
right? And
her ideal is that eventually, when their life in America is done, she's moving back to Cambodia. And something I read was a little bit about the husband's like, he's got to come to terms with that because that's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Gee, you think you'd discussed that before?
Not
the way you said that.
I said that. No,
he doesn't want to do it. No. Bloody oath, we're going to do it.
No, I meant so he's got to deal with the rest of his life.
He needs to understand.
America. Yeah, and understand that for a part of her story, he needs to go back and live there with her.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, what about you?
I would be interested. I think if anything, I've learnt that this story about, and I studied the killing fields in media in high school, and so we did quite a bit of work on it, which is, it's like 12, 13 years ago.
You're not that old. What are you talking about?
But and that was the first time I'd learned of it. So we did a bit of work on it then, but even just watching this film, I learnt so much more about even like the Angkar. They keep referencing Angkar. I was like, what the hell's Angkar? I'm not familiar with that, but it's basically the Khmer Rouge before they were the Khmer Rouge. This is kind of how it started.
There was no mention of Pol Pot.
Not once.
This film,
no. Not once.
And I think that's good. You're not recognising someone.
Do you think, as a 5-year-old, do you think she wouldn't have hearing the name?
You kept hearing the other name that they kept repeating. So
Angkar.
yeah,
but I think that was like the name of Khmer Rouge more than anything else, rather than a person.
But like you think about, you make a film about the Hitler Youth and Nazism, the kids know who Hitler is. So if you're breeding this young generation to do what you want to do, surely they know who their
I'm
leader
the boss.
is. Yeah.
Make sure you know who
But
I am.
I think that was purposely done. Like, you don't want to recognise or put a name to someone who's committed those atrocities.
True. That's very true. It'd be interesting to see if that's in the book, because it could literally be her recollections that she just didn't. But that would actually be a very thoughtful way of doing it. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't mind reading it. It's always nice to bone up on that kind of stuff. It's important to know.
And it's tricky because, like, so I studied history throughout high school, at university. I teach history every now and then. Even in Australia, the focus is on Vietnam. It's all happening at the same time, but your focus is on Vietnam.
Well,
so
Australia specifically has a lot more to do with Vietnam more than this.
Correct, but thinking about worldwide perspectives, like there are so many of these stories that you just need to highlight to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's if this had happened in any Western country that a quarter of the population was wiped out in 4 years, this is the biggest thing you do in history. So it's a really good point.
Yeah.
Let's not sweep it under the rug.
Right. Anything else?
Do you think, and you probably do because you really like this film, do you think Angelina Jolie sits back, looks at her work, and is satisfied with this as a love letter to Cambodia?
I hope so. I really hope so.
That was the first thing I was thinking. And I said I didn't mind this film, didn't love it, but I think she should, the amount of blood, sweat and tears she put into this, I hope she sits back and goes, job well done. I'm glad I did that.
I hope so, but then at the same token, I know there's a lot of creatives who don't want to watch. They've spent so much time and effort on a film that they don't go back and...
I mean, whether it's watching it or whether it's just knowing that it's out there.
Hopefully she just thinks I've done an awesome job, and I hope she does.
So do I. I really liked reading about her and her relationship with this film and this part of the world.
Well, following on from what you said about Angelina Jolie before as well, like how she was really on board with the locals and getting the permissions to film and all that sort of stuff. How, like, directing a film in a language you don't speak, I did find this a very quiet film.
As in dialogue quiet.
Yeah. So do you think that a part of that is because of Jolie not having the background in Cambodian, or is that...
No, I don't think it was.
You don't think so?
I think that's the point of her getting Rithi Pan on board.
Yep.
And I think that was where he kind of specialised. But I think too much dialogue would have felt a bit off from what you're seeing from a 5-year-old girl.
Yep. Last thing. Would you eat a cooked tarantula or a snake? Because watching those scenes where she's catching that spider and then they're gutting that snake, I was like, I'm gonna have nightmares. I was like, I couldn't do that.
I don't know.
Not even for money. I couldn't do it.
What if you're on Survivor and you had to win immunity?
I guess if they're dead, it's different. But like they showed that spider alive, and that just freaked me out.
But she didn't eat it alive.
I know she cooked it. But see the furriness in your mouth.
I didn't cringe at those things. Okay. I think
I'm just a weakling.
Yeah, there's definitely things I'd rather eat less. But
I'm shocking with food, so gross food like that. Ugh.
Nah, like the snake. That was a good get. If they didn't get the snake, that was. No, that was alright with me.
All right, well, let's wrap this up.
Well, I just want to...
sorry.
I've got to did my dog bark update.
Okay, good.
This is weird. So, I got 2 dogs.
I don't even remember a dog in this film.
No, there's not.
Ooh.
So, Todd is the one who likes to bark at animals. And he's like... I mean, he'll bark at someone in a lab coat because he thinks it's something. Like, he likes to bark at lots of things. But Bernie is pretty good. But Bernie had a lot of trouble with those yaks. Are they yaks? Those big... They had a lot of, like, yaks. I think they're yaks. Like, big bull kind of things. Yeah. Every time there was a yak on, he would just kind of like grumble a little bit. Ooh. But he won't really go with other things. But maybe he's got a thing for yaks.
We need to take him out to the wild yak brewery. See how he goes. That's how they make that beer, isn't it? The milky yak.
It's all real yak. Yeah. So I'll keep an eye on that one going forward if we get any more yaks
in a film.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a smart dog, so you might really have a specific taste.
Good. All right. Well, let's have a chat. Like to give our films a rating out of 5 and see what we think. Tell us out of 5. Give us a summary.
This was a great chat. I've really enjoyed, and I knew I would enjoy talking about this film. I felt the weight of the film as it was supposed to be felt, and I appreciated the reasoning for making it, and I respected the decision to fully commit to the display all through the lens of Long. But the good thing is about this film are also the reasons why it became a bit of a tough slog for me. So the plot direction was a little bit unclear, and I did find my interest levels wavering throughout. It was a filmmaking job well done, but for me, it's still just a 3-star film.
Okay. No stress at all. So I really enjoyed this film. I think I've probably made that fairly clear.
You?
Yeah, I think I did. Sorry, I'm coughing up my guts here. I've been holding off on all episodes, so
now you're letting it out.
It's all coming out. No, I did enjoy this film, and I totally get that it was a long film, but I looked back on it and I was like, I can't work out what you'd cut out of it.
Yeah, sure.
Because I was like, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was all cleverly put together. So, it was well made. Each shot carefully selected. It was needed. I'd recommend this to people to watch. So I've given it a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
So I'm chucking the calculator away because I can work this one out of my head.
3,
so it's a 3.5 out of 5. As a team,
it's a good score.
Which is a good score.
Which is basically reflective of the wider film community.
Yeah.
Would you watch this again next week?
I'd probably take a bit of time to watch it. I wouldn't rush back into it because I know it's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
I think I'd definitely watch it again. And this is a bit like I said before, Schindler's List. I love that film. It's hard, it's heavy, but once a year I'm going to watch that film just to get my mind back around what we don't want to do as humans.
Yep. All good. Yeah.
So we are on social media. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're at Flix Forum. Going back to MJ's comments throughout, the question this week is: are you interested in investigating Long's life after?
I can't believe I picked the question of the week.
I want to know about her life after what happened. That's what I want to know. So, how did she get from Cambodia to America? How did she, those types of things? How did she get into this activism? What was her roots into that? So,
have you read Mao's Last Dancer?
I haven't. No.
So Mao's Last Dancer is obviously a great story, but there's the later publications have
updates.
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, it's really good like that.
Yeah, good.
He lives in Australia now.
Yeah, so please subscribe to us. Give us a good rating. Apple Podcasts if you can. Spotify. Next week we're back again. If you're not bored with us after this long episode, we've had a long episode.
If you've watched this film, I hope you would have enjoyed this conversation, because if you watch the film, you want to talk to this.
I hope so.
You want to talk about this film to someone.
I'm really excited for next week's episode.
Okay, what do we got?
We have Gerald's Game. It's a 2017 psychological horror thriller drama.
Cool, I'm in.
Based on a Stephen King work.
Yep.
So that is why I'm in. And I've had this sitting on my watch list for a long time.
Have you read it?
It's a short story. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a short story that I think I've read. I need to double check this though. I'm pretty sure I know the story. Okay. I've read so many of his short stories. They all get a little bit confused at times, but it's a husband and a wife. I know this story. Okay. I know this story. Gerald's Game. It stars Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. Bruce Greenwood. We know Bruce Greenwood. Yeah. I think has he been in a Netflix film? I think he has.
I only know him by name.
Directed by Mike Flanagan. That's all. I'm giving two cast members. That's it.
Mike Flanagan is a familiar name too.
It is indeed, and I'm really looking forward to this. So please watch this before next week, so you can chill out with us and listen along. Thanks for being here.
Has been in. I'm just looking at him now. He's got a really familiar face.
Avatar. I always go with Bruce.
It's the guy you thought was from Avatar,
but it's
he was
not.
in Spectral.
Spectral. There
yep,
you go.
you're right.
I'm pretty sure I said this.
You
guy
called
was
him the Avatar guy.
The Avatar guy. And it's
there
not.
You go.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we'll be back next week for that one.
We will be. I can't wait. That'll be awesome.
That'll be awesome. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for the chat.
It's been great. I've enjoyed this. So we'll see you soon.
See ya.